In this video, we're going to look at four-step equations using both backtracking and inverse operations. Here we have our first equation, and if we look closely at it, we can see that our unknown input number has been multiplied by 2. Then we add 1. Then we multiply by 9. And then finally we divide by 3. So now to backtrack, we need to multiply by 3, divide by 9, subtract 1 and divide by 2. So now let's backtrack to find our answer. 21 times 3 gives me 63. 63 divided by 9 gives me 7. 7 minus 1 gives me 6. 6 divided by 2 gives me 3. So our final answer is x is equal to 3. Let's now solve the equation using inverse operations. Now, if we look at our flowchart and our backtracking, we can see that the first thing that we had to do to undo the equation was to multiply by 3. So we're going to do that to both sides. Now, divided by 3 and times 3 will cancel out. So now we have 9, 2x plus 1 is equal to 21 times 3, which is 63. The next thing we had to do to undo the equation was to divide by 9. So we're going to do that to both sides. Once again, times 9 and divided by 9 will cancel out, and we're left with 2x plus 1 is equal to 63 divided by 9, which is 7. The next thing we had to do to undo the equation was to minus 1. So we're going to do that to both sides. Minus 1 here, minus 1 here. Now, plus 1 and minus 1 will cancel out. So we are left with 2x is equal to 7 minus 1, which is 6. The last thing we had to do was to divide by 2. So we do that to both sides. We divide by 2, times 2 and divided by 2 cancel out. So we are left with x is equal to 3, as we found in our flowchart. Now let's look at our next example. We can see from the equation that the first thing that we are doing to our pronumeral a is timesing by 3. So on our flowchart, we're going to have times 3. The next thing that we do is we add 5. So on our flowchart, plus 5. The next thing that we do is we multiply by 4. So on our flowchart, times 4. And the last thing that we do is we then minus 7. So on our flowchart, minus 7. So when we backtrack, we're going to use inverse operations in the reverse order. So the first thing we've got to do to undo the equation is to plus 7. Then we divide by 4. Then we minus 5. And then we divide by 3. So now let's work backwards to solve the equation. 37 plus 7 is 44. 44 divided by 4 is 11. 11 minus 5 is 6. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So our solution to the equation is A is equal to 2. Okay, let's try and solve the equation using inverse operations. So if we look back at our flowchart, we can see the first thing that we had to do to undo the equation was to add 7. So I'm going to do that to both sides. I'm going to add 7 here and add 7 here. Now, minus 7 and plus 7 will cancel out, and I am left with 4 times 3a plus 5 is equal to 37 plus 7, which is 44. The next thing that we had to do to undo our equation was to divide by 4. So we're going to do that to both sides of the equation. We're going to divide by 4 on each side. Now, times 4 and divided by 4 will cancel out. So we're left now with 3a plus 5 is equal to 44 divided by 4, which is 11. The next thing that we had to do to undo our equation was to minus 5. So we're going to minus 5 from both sides. So minus 5 here, minus 5 here. Now, plus 5 and minus 5 cancel out. So we're left with 3a is equal to 11 minus 5, which is 6. The last thing that we had to do to undo our equation was to divide by 3. So we divide both sides of the equation by 3, and we find that times 3 divided by 3 will cancel out, and we're left with a is equal to 6 divided by 3, which is 2. Same solution as we got with our backtracking. Now let's look at this example. If we look closely at the equation, we can see that the first thing that we do to m in our equation is we multiply by 5. So on our flowchart, we're going to put times 5. The next thing that we do is we add 2. So then we put on our flowchart plus 2. The third thing that we do is divide by 3. So on our flowchart, divided by 3. The last thing that we do is we add 8. So on our flowchart, we put in plus 8. Now, we need now to backtrack using inverse operations in the reverse order. So the first thing that we do is minus 8, then we times by 3, then we minus 2, and then we divide by 5. So now let's work backwards and work out our unknown number m. 17 minus 8 gives me 9. 9 times 3 gives me 27. 27 minus 2 gives me 25. 25 divided by 5 gives me 5. So the solution to my equation is m is equal to 5. Let's solve the equation now using inverse operations. We can see from our flowchart that the first thing that we had to do to undo our equation was to minus 8. So we're going to minus 8 from both sides of the equation. Plus 8 and minus 8 cancel out, and I'm left with 5m plus 2 over 3 is equal to 17 minus 8, which is 9. The next thing that we had to do to undo our equation was to times by 3. So now I'm going to times 3 to both sides of the equation. So here I have times 3 and here I have times 3. Now, multiply by 3 and divide by 3 will cancel out, and I am left with 5m plus 2 is equal to 9 times 3, which is 27. The next thing I had to do to undo the equation was to minus 2. So I'm going to minus 2 from both sides of the equation. Plus 2 and minus 2 cancel each other out, and I'm left with 5m is equal to 27 minus 2, which is 25. The last thing that we had to do to solve our equation was to divide by 5. So we divide both sides by 5, times 5 and divided by 5 cancel out, and we're left with m is equal to 25 divided by 5, which is 5. The same equation, the same answer that we got from our backtracking. Okay, this is our final equation. We can see in our equation that the first thing that we do to our unknown number is divide by 2. So on my flow chart, I've got divided by 2. The next thing that we do is we add 1. So plus 1 goes onto our flow chart. The next thing that we do is we multiply by 3. So on our flow chart, we have times 3. And the last thing that we do is we add 5. So plus 5 goes onto our flow chart. Now let's come up with our inverse operations in the reverse order. The first thing that we're going to do to undo the equation is to minus 5. Then we're going to divide by 3. Then we're going to minus 1. And then we're going to times 2. Now let's work backwards to work out the value of x. 23 minus 5 gives me 18. 18 divided by 3 gives me 6. 6 minus 1 gives me 5. 5 times 2 gives me 10. So my solution to this equation is x is equal to 10. Okay, now let's use inverse operations in our equation. We could see from our flowchart, the first thing that we had to do to undo our equation was to minus 5. So we're going to minus 5 from both sides of the equation. Plus 5 and minus 5 will cancel out. So I'm left with 3 times x over 2 plus 1 is equal to 23 minus 5, which is 18. Now, the next thing that we had to do from our flowchart was to divide by 3. So we're going to divide both sides of our equation by 3. Times 3 and divided by 3 will cancel out, and I am left with x over 2 plus 1 is equal to 18 divided by 3, which is 6. The next thing that we had to do was to subtract 1. So we're going to subtract 1 from both sides of the equation. Plus 1 and minus 1 will cancel out, and so we are left with x over 2 is equal to 5. The final thing that we had to do to undo our equation was to times by 2. So I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by 2. Divided by 2 and times 2 will cancel out, and I am left with x is equal to 10. Again, the same answer that we got from our backtracking. Thank you for watching. I hope this helps you when you are solving 4-step equations.